So on August 8th of 2004, the Dave Matthews Band was on tour performing the second of two shows at the Alpine Valley Music Theater in East Troy, Wisconsin. Have you ever been there?
I've been there many times. My first big concert was at Alpine Valley Music Theater in East Troy, Wisconsin. It's about 45 minutes from where I grew up in Janesville, Wisconsin, and my first concert was Def Leppard.
Def Leppard.
Yeah, I was sitting in the grass. I was probably like 17 or 18 years old, maybe 16, and I thought it was really cool. And I was a little bit intimidated because, it seats about 30,000 people, and it was really cool. And do you remember what happened there a few years after that? At Alpine Valley Music Theater, that's actually where Stevie Ray Vaughan died in a helicopter accident getting out of there in deep fog.
Oh, I didn't know that's where that was.
Yeah.
I didn't know how long that place has been around.
It's been around forever.
Yeah, because normally places like, any venue like that with a cool name, Alpine Valley, I think that's a cool name. Now it would be like the Bank of America Theater.
Right.
Or, you know what I mean? Or like the Hostess, whatever. I mean, it's just...
It's really weird because it's just East Troy there's no one that actually, barely anyone that lives there. And so when everyone shows up for one of those big concerts, it backs up on the interstate for miles and miles and miles. And at the time, I remember like a bunch of people in the back of a pickup truck with, little lawn chairs, drinking beer, and you're not going anywhere for 2 hours. And it's like, where are we going? I'm like, I don't know. The exit's up there. And that's the only way in and only way out. So it was just like one of those, why did they pick this place to be the place where some of the biggest names in rock came to do concerts? But I guess they did. They were first or something.
Yeah, well, that actually answers one of the questions I had because so the Dave Matthews Band and their crew stayed at the Peninsula Hotel on Superior Street in Chicago during that several night stay. And it's like a almost 2 hour drive or about 2 hours. And so I was like, the only reason I can think of is that they just didn't have very nice, hotels up to their standards or whatever, because that's a long drive to go back and forth for a show each night. But
yeah, they could have probably gone to Milwaukee, which is still an hour and a half drive. And if they came to Janesville, where I grew up, hometown, there wasn't much, right? I remember there was a Motel 6 at the time, so that's probably not up to Dave Matthews' standards.
No. I would not think so.
There's no rider.
Yeah, no. On the rider is no cockroaches in the room. On that same day, August 8th, the Chicago Architecture Center was hosting riverboat tours to view the city's architecture from the water. Passenger boats like Chicago's Little Lady operated in the warmer months of the year and featured an open top where visitors can enjoy the sights of the city with unobstructed views. You know where it's going. The Kinzie Street Bridge, like most of Chicago's bridges, is constructed of steel grates. That allows the rain to go down into the river below, as well as help to avoid ice buildup, snow, things like that.
And it's beautiful down there, by the way. I mean, seeing bridge after bridge after bridge kind of right in the middle of the city is what makes downtown Chicago so awesome, too.
Yeah, man, that's a place. I mean, I could consider. I spent a little bit of time there over the years, both in nice weather where it's a fantastic place, and then also in the winter or when it's really windy. It's
tough.
It's not as pleasant, but it's beautiful. At the same time that Chicago's Little Lady began passing underneath the Kinzie Street Bridge at 1 p.m., Dave Matthews Band violinist Boyd Tinsley's tour bus was driving across the bridge. He wasn't in it. But nearing the middle of the crossing, the bus driver, Stephen Wall, emptied the bus's blackwater tank. And if you don't know what the blackwater tank is, it holds all the wastewater from showers, sinks, and toilets. I'll remind you again that the bridge is made out of steel grates that, you can stick your fingers through. Unsuspecting boat passengers below suddenly felt nearly 800 pounds of liquid raw sewage fall onto them. Of the 120 people on board, nearly 2/3 of the passengers, including the elderly, those with disabilities, small children, a pregnant woman, and an infant, were completely drenched with human waste, as were their clothes and all of their belongings. we've all got a mental picture of this right now, I think. I do.
Yeah. Why? Why there, right in the middle of the bridge?
I mean, we'll get into that, but the boat immediately turned around and headed back to port, offering all customers a full refund, which I would say is the very least that you could do. 5 passengers were taken to a local hospital to be checked out, making sure they didn't have any bacterial, whatever. Numerous people were vomiting, of course, and nauseous after having the brownish yellow liquid in their hair, eyes, noses, and mouths. It's funny, but it's not. I cannot imagine how absolutely disgusting that would be, to just having raw sewage raining on you.
Yeah, and coming out of nowhere too. Like you're just happy
You're just
to be
looking
there.
around,
right? Exactly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's fun to be a tourist when you're on one of those boats too. Like
not that day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. An investigation was underway after a citizen called police saying that they had taken down the license plate of the tour bus. He denied the allegation and was actually in Effingham, Illinois at the time. He offered for local police to come and inspect the Blackwater tank, which they did, and found that it was nearly full. The Dave Matthews Band also denied that this happened and supported Fitzpatrick and driver Stefan Wool, who also denied having dumped the waste. So that was kind of, as I was reading into this, I never knew that aspect of it. I kind of just thought it was like, hey, they dumped it, they got caught. But that's not what happened. Like, this kind of went on for a little bit, and they were all adamant that, like, we didn't do it. But I didn't know that the owner of the bus, and by the way, that's very typical for tour buses, are either owned by a company or an individual, and then the band's driver, they rent the bus out for a tour. This guy was in a different part of the state, and he was like, no way. That wouldn't have happened. That didn't happen. Come check the bus right now. Like, the local police went, and where I was reading, the police sergeant investigating the case in Chicago was actually on the phone with the police, using this guy's phone when they went and inspected the bus, and the tank is almost full. So it was really interesting.
Yeah, check out my tank. There is feces in here. See?
Lots.
See? Yeah.
Then police obtained video footage from a gym near the bridge, and were able to find proof of the bus dumping the waste. Attorney General Lisa Madigan filed a $70,000 lawsuit against Wool, the driver, and in March of 2005, he pled guilty to reckless conduct and discharging contaminants to cause water pollution. So it was from a security camera at this gym that just happened to see the bridge. And actually the band was still, and the driver were still denying this. And the chief, it was the mayor, I think, actually, that released the footage to the public.
I haven't seen it.
I didn't see it either, actually. I mean, it was not really one of those things.
Little grainy, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not worth watching. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I have seen, pictures. Maybe we can find some and put up pictures of the bus on the bridge, like a still image. But I don't think you'd really see much anyway. You're not going to see the people below the bridge. But so the mayor actually, came out and did a press conference, released the footage, and said, "Hey, look, man, I'm a big Dave Matthews fan, but this is disgusting and it's absolutely unacceptable. Still a fan, though." The driver, Stefan Wool, was fined $10,000 and sentenced to 150 hours of community service, along with 18 months probation, which I'm sure he didn't care about much of that. I mean, honestly. Yeah. We're going to be out of here in a day anyway.
Do you think that I remember, every time this came up, because it came up all the time, you just hear Dave Matthews Band.
Yeah.
That can ruin a band for, like through fault or no fault, or however you weigh in on this, but like, it's like you're kind of being made fun of, and it could ruin a band. And like, do you agree with that?
I don't know if it could ruin it. I don't think it helped them for a little while. I mean, it was, they definitely came out and it was made pretty clear at one point that they weren't on the bus. It was just the driver going, whatever, shuttling back and forth wherever he was going. But that kind of gets lost in the story. The story is Dave Matthews is sitting on the bus and pulls the lever. I mean, that's what people
right.
hear.
Yeah, I heard it from Kurt Loder on MTV News. He and once it gets on MTV News, then it's everywhere, right? Like everyone's talking about it and probably talking about it at the concert too.
Yeah, I mean, it's and I mean, you're in the time of social media even at this when the story took place, so it was getting shared around. I remember it was all over the news.
Yeah, I think maybe I've heard it on Howard Stern more than a couple times too.
Oh yeah, and I Dave Matthews himself, I mean, he's been asked about this a lot of times in interviews since. And one of the things I will say is that he said, when he gets asked, he's like, he apologizes again for that and says, I will apologize as many times as it needs. Not his fault, man. The guy wasn't even on the bus. It's like he would never be, you're never going to have the star back there emptying the toilets on the bus. It's just,
Or he's in the back, like he gets on the little house phone up to the driver and say, okay, we're in the center of the bridge. Can you drop it now? We're really going to get these people, right?
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
Dave Matthews Band was ordered to pay roughly $200,000 in fines to the state of Illinois and donated $50,000 to both the Friends of the Chicago River and Chicago Park District. Also agreeing to keep a log of when their buses emptied their septic tanks. I mean, no serious injuries were reported by the passengers of the boat, and some have actually begun to recently do interviews about the experience for a documentary in production called The Crappening. And
are you serious?
Yeah, that was as of 2023, early 2024. That some guys they were, because it's privacy and whatever the boat company can't release, but I guess enough of these people have spoken out that some documentary filmmakers have gone and tried to find those people and have now. So they're partaking in this. The incident has publicly become known as Poopgate.
Well, and we are familiar with when you take let's say a podcast or something out to the market, they're like, hey, could you do multiple seasons of this? And is this a documentary or scripted series or movie? It's like, I can imagine being in that pitch meeting, right? Well, this is great for season 1. Do we have anything in the Poopgate universe that might come back for a season 2, and who can we talk to? I mean, I can imagine that happening.
For sure, yeah. They always want that anthology, so you're going out and looking for stories like what else was dumped on people anyway, I just thought that was a lot of people know about that. Like I say, it was I don't even know what made me think of wanting to do that story today.
Are you actually a Dave Matthews fan? Like how do they sit with you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, he's from, they started in Virginia, so it's very close to where I'm from in Maryland. I can remember when their first record came out, and actually right when Crash came out, the really big record that broke them. When that came out, I can remember hearing that a friend of mine had gotten a copy from some before the album was released, and we sat at this little party, and I was like 17 or something, I don't remember, 16, 17. And I can remember sitting there and listening to that record for the first time, like with friends, and it was like a burned tape.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know really who Dave Matthews was. It was just like, yeah, they're this band. They're from Virginia or whatever. They play all, I was blown away by that record.
Yeah, very original. I mean, like, you remember? I mean, like that music, that vibe was pretty different at the time.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, I lost touch with, I don't follow him now, but I saw him in concert. It's a bit jammy for me, but still fun. It was, it's cool to see him once.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, that's it.